Okay, so this hopefully will go a little quicker than the other two things, but we'll see. You know how I like to talk. Okay, so we're going to talk about immunity in general here. And this sheet I actually started to show you, and just wasn't ready for it. So immunity in general, once you are actually conceived, you are considered Homo sapiens, and you won't get certain diseases that say like the Canis familiaris will get, your dog, or the Felis domesticus, your cat. Okay, that's called innate immunity. Okay, inborn. Now I know innate, you think like, oh, that's anything. But here, innate is talking specifically about things that you're immune to because you're human. Okay. Innate, I would rather it actually be called just inborn immunity, or like species specific immunity. As soon as you are human, and that's from the time a sperm fertilizes an egg, that zygote is considered human, and it begins its immune system on that day one. Okay, and that's important because you're a human. That's innate. But that's not the kind of immunity, when we think of immunity, that we often think of. We think of acquired immunity. This is sometime after conception. This is like after conception, and it's anything that can happen after conception. So let's talk about the active stuff. This is the stuff you're more familiar with. You're a little kid and you get natural active acquired immunity. What is that? What is natural active acquired immunity? Natural active acquired immunity is that old thing where, like, oh, get the disease, and then once you get the disease, you'll be immune to it. Some of the people that have gotten COVID this year might have some little bit of natural active acquired immunity to COVID. But we don't know how long that's going to last. Okay, so we want to boost that. So by getting a vaccine later on, that will help boost that natural immunity that you already build up in your body by fighting off the disease. And fortunately, you're young enough out there and you were able to fight that off. And that's good for those. But so many people weren't able to do that, and that's why we've lost over 500,000 people just in the United States alone. And that natural active immunity is the type of where you get the sickness and you fight it off, and then the immunity that you build up from those memory T cells and those memory B cells and the leftover antibodies that are swirling around your body. That's what's going to remain. But that natural active acquired immunity, we don't know how long it's going to last. Sometimes it may last like a lifetime. Sometimes it may last only a few years. Sometimes it may last only a few months. And this is where we are with like the COVID thing. We don't know how many of you that got COVID and got over it, how long your immunity is going to last. So it's best to like boost that. That's what booster vaccines do. Okay. But by you fighting it off, you've already gained a little bit of immunity. Okay. So now let's talk about the artificial active acquired immunity. Okay. Again, it happens sometimes after birth, but why is it artificial this time? Because I want you to think of an injection. Okay, whenever you think artificial, it somehow was artificially injected into your body. Okay, and this is your typical vaccines. Now, vaccines in the past, like your tetanus and your MMR, that's measles, mumps, rubella, your polio one, and even smallpox that you guys don't get anymore, but we got a long time ago. All those vaccines in the early days, and actually not so early days recently, like when you guys were young, you got these vaccines. Those vaccines were almost a little more dangerous because what they injected you with was either like a killed version of the virus or an attenuated version, which is like slightly killed. Can't reproduce, can't cause like problems with you. And what you do is you get a little piece of it and it kind of like triggers your natural immunities to fight up against it. But we still call it artificial because it's injected into you. It's not like acquired naturally. Okay, it's acquired artificially through a shot. But it's not a bad thing. So often, like, so many people that are against vaccines think, oh, we shouldn't be putting this foreign thing into you. Well, you know what? We're moving backwards if we think like that. Because back in the olden days, and I can remember myself, because MMR used to just be M. There used to be just a vaccine for measles. That's it. You didn't get one for mumps. You didn't get one for rubella, which we actually called the German measles sometimes. And I actually came down with rubella when I was younger. And I remember how I came down with it. I was told to go play with the lanes over in the other yard. Okay. And I remember with chickenpox, I was told to go play with the neighbors that had chickenpox. That was so dangerous back then that we like subjected our kids to childhood diseases or diseases that could really become detrimental. And measles too. A lot of people like think, oh, they can just get the measles and get over it, but not everybody does. And that's why like a vaccine is in a more controlled environment. It's a killed version. It's a safer way. And the old vaccines, I wouldn't be surprised if science starts developing new tetanus vaccines and new mumps vaccines and measles and rubella and polio and all these new vaccines based on this RNA therapy that now the vaccines are going by. So vaccines are a good thing. They boost your immune system. They do it in a safe way. It's not safe to get the disease, okay? It's safer to get the vaccine, okay? And so many people need to have this explained to them that when you get the disease, you can die from the disease or you can pass it on to somebody else that can die. But when you get a vaccine, you can't pass that on to anybody else, but you will build up the immunity to stop your body from getting it and stop your body from dying from it, okay? So finally then, let's move on to our passive ones. These are like where it's not your body making the immunity, because in both of these, the active is actually your body. And let me write this down. Your own body fights. Okay, so fights meaning like that whole humoral and cellular response. So your own body is like using your killer T cells and your memory T cells and the helper T cell and the B cells making the antibodies. That's your own body doing that fighting. But what's passive immunity? You're actually getting the immunity from somewhere else. And there's two types: natural, which are babies in the womb, or nursing babies. You may have heard that babies in the womb, like across the placenta, the antibodies from the mother travel over the placenta into the babies and give them that immunity up to like almost about a year of age. Depends again on which things. So like if I had antibodies to chickenpox or measles or mumps or rubella, when my children were first born, okay, my immunity passed over that placenta into their bloodstream and gave them a natural immunity. But not only that, if I continued to nurse them, it also passes over in the breast milk. And that can last. So if you keep your baby like, nursing, on breast milk for up to the first year of life, they can have some of the same immunities and they won't get as sick. Nursing babies are known to be not as sick as babies that are fed formula. Now that's again, a crapshoot. Okay, like babies that are fed formula doesn't mean they're going to get sick, but they have to be better protected. They don't have any immune system that's crossing over into them. But as for those nursing babies and the ones in the womb, okay, they do eventually lose that. That kind of immunity won't last forever. Almost a shame, right? Because then mommy could have sent you all those things. Never would have had to get a shot, right? But shots are okay. It's just a quick little fix to get your body to be healthy and not like die from some bad things. Okay, so that's natural passive immunity. You're getting it from your mother. So go thank your mother, your biological mother, by the way. Okay, passive immunity can also come artificially. Think artificial, think a shot. Okay, this is where you're actually getting injection of antibodies. This is that monoclonal antibodies that President Trump had gotten. And a lot of people have gotten. This is given to you as like a cure. A lot of nurses, when the Ebola virus and some victims were coming in from Ebola, they had some antibodies where people had slightly recovered from Ebola, and they were churning out these antibodies and they were giving injections into these nurses. And a lot of nurses, even working with COVID, were getting these monoclonal antibody treatments, monoclonal antibodies. They're the antibodies from a donor, and that donor should be human. But in the case of rabies, for instance, a lot of times if people are given rabies artificial treatments, and this is like done as a treatment. Let's make that clear here. This is done as a treatment, okay, because you don't have time to wait for your body to fight it off. These are bad diseases like Ebola, okay, like COVID, like rabies, that like if you get them and you wait for your your body, your natural active acquired immunity to do this, you're going to be dead before it gets you, because these kind of things are going to kill you so fast. So you got to get those monoclonals. Unfortunately, I had a friend recently die from COVID-19. He was my age. He was 57. He had COVID for about 12 days. And then on the 12th day, he started really having problems breathing. His wife took him to the emergency room, and only 2.5 hours later, he died. He was beyond being able to get that treatment for monoclonal antibodies. He was already beyond that. Had he gone, and hear a little bit of me, because I'm still going through those mourning phases where, you get mad, you get sad, you get, kind of bargaining, all those like phases of death that you go through. My phase that I keep going through with him is I'm so mad at him that he didn't go sooner and stuff. Go sooner, and he could have gotten maybe the monoclonal antibodies, or even before he got sick, get a vaccination and all. And so it's so important, because he didn't know. He was in good shape. He was a little overweight, maybe even a lot overweight, and good man, though, a good man. And unfortunately, he's left his wife and his 3 kids. His kids are all grown. His youngest is in college, but it's sad. They lost their dad, and and I think I'm still in that mad phase of like, gosh darn it, John, why didn't you just go to the hospital sooner? And sometimes men can be really tough about doing that. So if somebody gets sick, sometimes you need to like get checked out before it gets beyond help. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But that's about immunity. The last thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to flip to it, is the autoimmune diseases. Okay. And look at these names out there: lupus. This is that Guillain-Barré syndrome, Graves syndrome, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, type 1 diabetes, arthritis, and then the old IBDs. The irritable bowel diseases, celiac disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. These are all autoimmune diseases. What are autoimmune diseases? They are when your immune cells go hyperactive. They lose the ability to recognize yourself. And this is where those suppressor cells that we talked about, the suppressor T cells and the suppressor B cells, need to stop the attack. Because when they don't stop attacking, it's kind of like, Marines gone bad. They start attacking like, the innocent bystanders or something. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but unfortunately it does happen in our bodies. Our bodies don't suppress these immune cells, and then those immune cells start attacking. In the case of all the IBDs, ulcerative colitis is all just throughout the large intestine. Okay, that attacks the large intestine, the cells in the large intestine. Celiac disease attacks when you eat gluten. Then it starts to identify the gluten as an antigen, but then also starts identifying your cells that are kind of trying to like absorb the gluten or get the nutrients from the gluten, and attacks those cells in there. So celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, and then Crohn's disease is the entire digestive system from the moment something enters your mouth. So it can happen up in your mouth. A lot of people with Crohn's disease will have ulcers inside their mouth. They'll have them down through their esophagus, in their stomach region, in their small intestine, and their large intestine. So Crohn's disease is throughout the whole digestive tract. Ulcerative colitis is just the large intestine, and Crohn's disease is pretty much small and large intestine primarily, and due to like when they eat gluten. So stay away from gluten, you celiac disease people out there. And of course it keeps on. But all of the IBDs definitely weaken these people. They're not getting enough nutrition. Psoriasis is a rash of the skin. That's, again, an autoimmune disease. Type 1 diabetes is where the pancreas is not producing the insulin properly. Arthritis is in the joints, okay? Multiple sclerosis is in the nerve cells, where the myelin sheaths around the nerve cells are being like worn away. And Graves disease, thyroid, pardon me on that. Thyroid. This is where the thyroid is being attacked. And so you may have like problems with your thyroid functioning, so your metabolism. Lupus, again, has to do with the immune system, but this is where the immune system actually stops fighting. So it's immune system attacking the immune system. And Guillain-Barré is where the extremities, your arms and muscles, your arm muscles and your leg muscles are being inhibited. So you get a lot of weakness. It can get very severe where people lose the ability to walk, to use their arms. And often they think it's like maybe nerve cord damage, but they find out Guillain, I never say this right. Guillain Barre, I know is the second word, but Guillain, I don't know.